going to start with the base cabinet. This cabinet is 30 inches across the front. Yes, it is. 24 deep and 34 and a half high. So that's the base cabinet that we're starting with. And following the instructions, the first thing we're going to do is remove the drawer, install a drawer pull, and then we're going to leave that drawer out. The feeling for underneath the drawer, these green levers, if you flip these in, on both sides, the drawer will pull right off the slides. So if we put this down, put it back upright, open the drawer to full extension, going to feel for those levers underneath. There they are. And pull the drawer right off the slides and set it aside. Put the drawer glides back in. Okay, we're going to install the drawer slide on this drawer. We're still on step 1, but we're using a template from step 3. So I'll run through that with you. In step 3, you've got a hole spacing template. So if you just cut this out here, right across there, then there's your template. You can eyeball center. I put a piece of tape on here and already marked the center line. So I'm just going to put this right up against the inside of this trim, line up my center line, take a center punch, and mark a hole here, mark a hole here, and then I'm using a 3/16 drill bit. You can check the size of the screws, but this should work fine. And then just go ahead and drill 2 holes through your drawer. There you are. Brush that off. And the slide. Inside the drawer face here, I kissed the front here a little bit with the drill bit, but that's fine. These still fit through here. So you want to put your screws in here and go ahead and put your drawer pull on. Alright, now we're going to put the display top onto the cabinet base. Steps 2, 3 was the template, so 2, 4, 5, and 6 it looks like. So first thing we need to do is up here on the top of the cabinet base, if there's any type of protective foam pad or anything, take that off and get rid of it. We want to be working right on these corner braces. So with a 3/16 drill bit, just eyeball the center. It doesn't have to be precise for now, they're just pilot holes. So approximate center of each one of these corner braces. Now there's already a hole here. This cabinet's been used once before. Yours will not have the hole. So you'll be looking for approximate center, drilling the 3/16 hole in all 4 corners. Then grab our black display top. These are staple marks. That's the inside, or the underside. And you've got 1 raw edge, and the rest are finished black. So you want the raw edge to the back. And we're going to center it left to right and have it a 1/2 inch off the back. So what we're looking for is a 1/2 inch in. And there's 2 pieces of plywood here. They're approximately a 1/2 inch. So if you go to the edge of the first one, that's a pretty good marker for your 1/2 inch here. And then you want to center it left and right. Top happens to be an inch larger than the cabinet back here, so you've got a 1/2 inch overhang on each side. So if you align with the edge of this 1 piece of plywood and you center it, I just eyeballed it for now. I'll measure it then before we do anything else. But that's the alignment that you're going to want with the cabinet top. Okay, we're going to secure the display top through the holes that we drilled in those corner braces. I just dumped all my hardware that came with the kit into this box just to keep track of it. So what I pulled out of there were the 4 2-inch screws. We're going to run those up through the braces into the cabinet top. Now to make that easier and so the top doesn't move around, I usually like to drill a pilot hole, so I've got an 1/8 inch bit just right up through the holes that you drilled previously. And at least somewhere for the screws to get started. Then I'm going to do that on all 4 corners and then switch out to a Phillips driver bit and install the 2-inch screws in each corner. So we duck under here, grab our pole, run that 2-inch screw in there, same on all 4 corners, and that'll secure our display top. Okay, moving on with step 7, we're going to lay out the components that create the beginning of the back wall of the display, loosely assemble them here, and then raise them up to the back of the cabinet. So what I have laid out here is the backer panel with the gray wood grain side facing up. These 3 holes at the top, there are only 2 holes down here, that would be the bottom of the display. We've got the top rail and the 2 holes that'll bolt to, the bottom rail down here by these holes, and we've got our right side upright and our left side upright. The uprights are actually marked for you with an R and an L for left and right, and the longer leg here will be behind the panel, and the shorter leg creates the side. Okay, for hardware in the kit, there are basically short, medium, and long bolts. We're going to use the medium size, so if you lay them out, just pick out the medium sized ones. We're going to use 4 of those and 4 hex nuts. Alright, so we're going to put our bolt through the rail, through the back panel, and through the upright. Put the nut on the back. Don't over tighten it right now, just finger tight is good enough. So pull this up onto here, align this, drop our bolt down through everything, and then we'll go ahead and put the nut on from the back. Okay, so we have everything loosely assembled. We've got 2 bolts through the top rail, 2 bolts through the bottom rail, nuts on the back, 3 holes here. If those 3 holes aren't there, something's upside down. Then we're going to raise this up to the back of the cabinet. As you're coming up into place, as you're looking at this from the back, you should have your right side marked and your left side marked like this, if this is together correctly. Okay. So as you pivot this into place, this bottom rail will come up over the cabinet top, and this will come in just like that. So your rail is going to be on top here, this will come into this notch, and this will be flush here on the side, and then we're going to go through the process of bolting this onto the cabinet. Okay, we're going to bolt these uprights to the back of the cabinet. You want to make sure that the outside of this upright is flush with the side of the cabinet, and then we're going to drill through these 3 holes and bolt that through into the inside of the cabinet. So being careful that this doesn't move, or you can clamp it or have somebody hold it if you need to. Go ahead and drill through the cabinet. Your bolts at this point are only really short and long. You're going to use 6 of the long bolts in this process. Put 1 bolt through here, and then the nut will actually go inside the cabinet. So if you have someone to help you, it'd be great. If not, you can try to do it yourself, but this nut will be on the inside of the cabinet, and that's how I'm going to do it. Once this is in, we're going to go ahead and drill the other holes. Alright, we got our first bolt in here in this top hole. The nuts are caps, they're like a locking nuts, so you won't need a wrench on the inside. You can just tighten that up. Again, if you have a friend in the front of the cabinet that can put those in there for you, that'd be great. But with this one in, we're going to go ahead and drill this hole. We're going to drill this hole. We are not going to drill the bottom hole. If you drill the bottom hole, if you have a bottom hole here, it will interfere with the drawer slides. So 1, 2, 3 holes, do not do the bottom one. So I'm going to go ahead and put this one in. Going to do the top hole of this bottom pair of holes, making sure that this stays flush out here. And I am not going to do the bottom hole. Okay, now we're going to bolt the upright onto this side. Again, we're going to drill through the holes through the cabinet in the first 3 holes and not the bottom hole. So this one's already drilled, so make sure this is flush out here. Bolts through each one of these. Now that the uprights are bolted on, we can go ahead and tighten these 4 bolts that we put the rails on with. Just make sure that they're flush along the edge here, and then just go ahead and tighten those up. Okay, so our back panel's in place, and we've gone around and tightened all the hardware that we left loose earlier. So the rails are tightly secured, top and bottom, and the uprights are secured, and all the bolts are tightened, fixing that to the cabinet. So now we're going to go ahead and install the 2 side trim boards. And to do that, you're going to be up against here, and the front edge of the trim is going to hit this notch where the top overhangs. So you're going to bump that right there, and then just eyeball that you've got it aligned as flush as you can here with the front of the panel. So that's the position for the side trim, up against the top in this notch, flush here, and then we're going to go around to the inside and screw this on. Okay, so you have short screws in your hardware set, and double checking and feeling that you're flush here in the front again. There's no pilot hole or anything, you just can go ahead and drill these right in. If you prefer a pilot hole, go ahead and give yourself one, but just go ahead and secure this with these screws through the hole, and just work your way down, making sure that you're feeling that it's still flush in the front, and go ahead and install those screws all the way down that. I've got a few screws in already, so I'm just going through and making sure I have a screw in each one of these holes. Okay, I'm on the other side installing the second trim panel. Again, front of the panel up against here where the top overhangs, right in that notch, and then align with the back panel up here. So attaching the screws to the inside of the trim panel. Again, my fingers are feeling for a flush fit with the front there while I'm putting these in, and I'm just working my way down, putting the screws in to secure the trim panel on this side. Okay, if you're following along with the printed version, we're on step 14. We're going to install the header box. The 4 holes is the front section that'll take the actual header graphic. The 3 holes are where we're going to attach it to these 3 holes here, using the longer bolts and hex nuts. Probably the easiest thing to do here, especially if you're by yourself, is to put 1 bolt through. Go ahead and however you can the best see what you're doing, put that through there, and then just let it rest on that top rail, keeping pressure on it while you just come around here to the back and put the nut on. Just go ahead and put that Kep's lock nut on there. You don't have to tighten it all the way. And then you can just raise this up, put that bolt through the back. Again, nut on the back. And then I'll put a bolt through the middle here. Everything's still loose, so if you need to move it to get it to pass through, go ahead and do that. Nut on the back. And now that we have all 3 in, we can go ahead and tighten those down. Okay, so for hardware we have 4 short bolts now and 4 sets of standoffs. These were in a foam package. I unpackaged them and separated them. So what you want to do is take the washers, separate the washers, and you want a body and then a head with the threaded stud on it. A lot of this will thread separately, so you want to separate it so that you have a head with the stem and a body. So at each hole in the printed header, standoff cap with the threads, washer through the hole from the front, washer on the back, standoff body after that, and just snug it up finger tight just by holding on to both sides, and do that for all 4. So we have the standoffs attached to the printed header. Now we're going to attach this to the header box with the 4 short bolts. So you can put a bolt through from the inside of the header box, line that up with the corresponding standoff, and just tighten that up finger tight. And then it doesn't hurt anything to let this hang once you have one of them in there. And then I would come across to the other side and do the same with one of these. Again, just finger tight, and then go ahead and do the bottom. Okay, in step 16, we're going to start to hang our display doors top of the door. I put a piece of cardboard on top of the surface here just to work here. If you have another work surface you want to use, that's fine. There's also a label in here so I can keep track of the top. So working from the inside of the door, and I need to install the brackets to hang this into the display. There is a top and a bottom bracket. They're labeled when you get them. You can either keep track of them or just, you really can't put them on wrong. I need screw holes here and flush with the top pin up. If I do that with this one, this is obviously the bottom. So I want to put one here at the top. I'll get back to screwing that down in a second. And I'm going to put one down here at the bottom. Again, 3 screw holes here, flush with the bottom, pin facing down. The other important thing is that these brackets are on the same side as these door hinges. And I'll cover that later. But you want your door hinges and your brackets together. Then I'm just going to come here with the same small screws we used when we did the trim and go ahead and screw these down. Again, if you want pilot holes, go ahead. They're really not necessary with these screws. Come down to the bottom and we'll put 3 screws in there. Again, flush with the bottom of the door. You got your 3 holes and your pins facing down, and you're right beside your hinge here. And then the one other step on your bottom pin, you want to install one of these nylon spacers onto that pin. So we have our brackets attached to the door and our nylon spacer on the bottom pin. And if I stand this up, to put this into the display, you're going to pass the top pin through a hole in the top rail and then pivot this into place and drop the bottom pin through the bottom hole. So I'm going to put it in this position. You can always change it depending on how you want it laid out in your store. But this pin is going to raise up through this hole. Then the whole thing is going to pivot inward and that bottom pin will drop into the bottom hole. That'll create the display door. Okay, all the wings are in, so we're just going to reinstall the bottom drawer. So go ahead and pull these drawer slides out. Rest the drawer over these, so these notches are over the slides. And then it's as easy as just closing the door once. Those latches from earlier will latch and your drawer's back installed in the cabinet.